إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in knowledge, to benefit us from that which He has taught us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us tawfiq and success and ikhlas, sincerity and truthfulness towards Him and for His sake. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His barakah and His bounty in this world and in the next, and to protect us from the fire of Jahannam. Amma ba'd, as for what follows, we continue with regards to our program, A Sip of Knowledge. This program that is meant to be an exposure for us to different fields of knowledge, or some of the fields of sciences in Islam. And in today's class, insha'Allah ta'ala, we will be covering some of the headlines with regards to the fiqh of Tahaara, with regards to rulings pertaining to Tahaara, purification. But before we get into that actual topic, there was supposed to be an introduction to fiqh by itself, an introduction to fiqh, the same way we did an introduction to tafsir. There was supposed to be an introduction to fiqh and usul of fiqh, the principles of fiqh and the fundamentals of fiqh. And that, studying that is very important before or having an idea about fiqh and its usul and its development. And so it's very important. It's not a must that you do it before studying fiqh, especially if you're studying fiqh just to know what you need to do. But it's very important, and it gives you an insight and understanding of how fiqh developed. You will understand why there are differences of opinion, and many things you will understand. But unfortunately, we will not have that class because there was a circumstance. The speaker could not make it. He had to travel before he was intending to travel. But insha'Allah ta'ala, I will just, within this class, I will mention certain guidelines or certain points connecting to fiqh as a whole and the development of fiqh. Some very small points where it is needed to understand difference of opinion and so on. And before we forgot, with regards to our class today, those who are following online, there was a cutout at the end of the video, and you can go back and you will find, inshallah ta'ala, you will find the entire video. And remind everyone also to register for the class, so you can get the notes pertaining to what we presented, and also try to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are not making money, but it's just for da'wah. There's no money making. Normally people tell you subscribe to the channel to make money, right? But subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can receive the masjid programs, and so you can be updated, and so on. Try to get the app, the masjid app, so you can be updated on everything, and we will remind you of this throughout the program, insha'Allah ta'ala. Now back to our topic. As we mentioned that this today, insha'Allah ta'ala, will be a basic presentation on fiqh and the fiqh of Tahaara, the fiqh concerning purification. The purpose and objective of this class: to be aware and have consciousness of some of the basic rulings concerning to our everyday life in relation to worship and worldly matters. The main purpose of this class is not just to learn some fiqh. Rather, it is impossible for us to cover the entire fiqh of Tahaara, purification, in this class. That's impossible. But what is the main objective is for us to have an idea, as the same way we did with the tafsir, of what is out there to learn. Many people, they do not seek their religious knowledge because they don't know that they are ruling concerning things, right? They don't know they are ruling concerning wudu, with regards to sleep, with regards to menstruation, with regards to birth, postnatal bleeding, and those things. They may be unaware of those rulings. And then you find them asking the scholars, for years I have been praying while having my menstruation, for example, with regards to the woman, right? She didn't know, which is something very strange, but it happens. Or the opposite. A woman might be bleeding the entire month and she's not praying, period, because she didn't know there's a difference between hayd and istihada, right? Menstruation and what they call excessive bleeding. And that is just one example. People might be making wudu with water that is not permissible for you to make wudu with, and so on. So just to have an idea that there is knowledge for us to seek. And the basic thing when you want to do something, anything with regards to your deen, ask about it. Ask about it someone of knowledge, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge if you do not know. That's the basic, that's everyone is required to do. Just ask. And also to be knowledgeable so we can groom our children upon their deen and teach them the basic regarding their practical life and worship. Now, one important thing to know, your children is not going to know anything obviously. Right? They are not going to know anything naturally. As Allah says, He took us out from the belly of our mother having or not knowing anything. Right? And many parents, they think because they grew up knowing certain things, their children is naturally going to grow up knowing it. No one is going to naturally know anything unless you teach them or you facilitate for them that knowledge. An important note, the ruling presented in this presentation are not meant to label as wrong any fiqh opinion that is supported by scholars, unless it's an issue of ijma, which is consensus, or the opposing view has no base among the earlier generation. And these two matters can only be known by the clarification of scholars themselves and not a student or a layman. Now this is important with regards to studying fiqh. When you're, especially with regards to this presentation, right? There are many of these rulings, they might be difference of opinion. And we are not here to label any of the other opinion as being a wrong, sinful opinion. Of course, the opinion presented is because it is chosen to be the right one, right? But that does not mean when we say label it as wrong, munkar, a wrong, a sinful thing, if you see someone doing an opposing view, so long as it is a scholarly view, it is not for the layman to object to that view. And that is a topic of itself, right? And many people, unfortunately, you have views that were supported by the Salaf, the companions, and the 4 Imams. And these views existed throughout history and is still supported by scholars amongst our time. And it's unfortunately now you see someone come as if they have gathered the knowledge of the awwaleen and the akhirin, everyone before and everyone after, and they have the ability to tell you which is the most correct view in the sense of everything else is wrong, right? And if someone do it, you got to object to it. That mentality is totally wrong, and that is not the mentality of the scholars before. If a view existed in the time of the past and it existed throughout history, and I'm mentioning each one of these is intended. It existed in the past, and it continues. This view was supported throughout history, these views, right, by different scholars, and it's still supported in our time. The issue there now is not an issue of a scholar knowing the evidence and not knowing the evidence. Most of the time, or if not all of the time, if you find a view like that, supported in the past, that view being supported throughout the history, and also supported in our time, the difference is because of 2 things most of the time, or if not all of the time. What is the 2 things? One, it is difference because of understanding. The way they understand the hadith or the verse, not because one of them know the hadith and another didn't know the hadith, or because they differ with regards to the authenticity of the evidence, which is going to be the hadith, because there is no difference with regards to the authenticity of the Quran, right? They differ with regards to the authenticity of the evidence. Now, unfortunately, the way we are being trained sometimes is black and white, right? We see things black and white. But after being able to study, and this is not my experience alone, but the experience of many students, after being able to study, you see that black and white mentality is a commercial mentality used to force their views upon you. But when you study, for example, in our time, you see Sheikh Uthaymeen, Sheikh bin Baz, Sheikh Albani, they may differ. They're living in the same time. Rather, scholars who come after them, they're still differing. Sheikh Fawzan, you find sometimes he has a total different view than Sheikh Uthaymeen and Sheikh bin Baz. Now imagine you have a live podcast with Sheikh Fawzan, right? And the people ask him verdicts. He's going to give his view, obviously. Not a place for difference of opinion. But then another person may be teaching, and Sheikh Uthaymeen, he has a different view. They didn't know their evidence. It's not the case. It's not there. It's not someone is following the sunnah, and the next one is not following the sunnah as it is unfortunately being presented. It's not an issue of following the sunnah and not following the sunnah. It either has to do with an issue of understanding or difference of opinion with regards to the authenticity of the evidence. And this is very important. This is very important with how we deal with each other. Now there might be views. Now I mentioned 3 things existed in the past. So there may be view that didn't exist in the past but is widespread today, unfortunately. Right? They know, and how we know that? Not because of ourselves, but the scholars themselves, they clarify that. Among the most famous example is the issue of praying more than 8 rakah during Ramadan for Taraweeh, 8 or 11 rakah. The view that it is a bid'ah, as it is explained by many of the scholars, that view never existed. Not among the companions, not among the 4 Imams, among the Tabi'i, never existed in the past. Right? But it's a widespread view. And that doesn't mean the scholar who supported that view doesn't mean that they are not scholars. But it's a big mistake that was made. And how we know it is a big mistake? The scholars, they clarify it. Other scholars, they clarify that mistake. Or you have a view that existed, but it was never supported. It went extinct. How we know that? Scholars themselves, they made it clear. For example, amongst the companion, there were a difference of opinion if you had to make wudu when you eat meat, apart from camel meat. When you eat any meat that has been cooked, you eat beef, you eat chicken, you eat goat meat, sheep meat, mutton. There was a difference of opinion amongst the companions whether or not you have to make wudu. But that view went extinct. It's not for someone now to come and revive that view and say, okay, I'm following the understanding of some of the companions. It went extinct for generations. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, my ummah will never agree upon a mistake, will never agree upon something that is wrong. Right? So long as those things exist in the view, it was supported and it is still supported, then it is not a thing that is labeled as a munkar, a sin. And for the layman, no matter how convinced you may be, so long as that person is following a scholarly opinion, it is not for them to object. Because imagine, okay, there's students sitting here in Sheikh Uthaymeen class and in another masjid in Sheikh bin Baz class. And their different views are going to be obviously. It's not for those two set of laymen to come now and say, my sheikh is right and your sheikh is wrong. Both of them is going to present their evidence. And amongst the strange thing you see sometimes, unfortunately, people who are in position, they treat the laymen as footballs. Every time you get a new imam, they kick you in a different direction. And they label the previous as wrong. Right? And when you try to understand the difference of opinion, what they're going to say? What is the best thing to do? Follow the sunnah or follow the imam? But that is not the reality of the question. The question is, should I follow you or should I follow the previous imam? Because both of you presenting evidences, both of you presenting the verdicts of scholars, and we as the layman, we don't memorize the evidence, we don't have the ability to have a discussion, right? And one scholar who clarified this thing very clearly, I don't know if it's translated, Sheikh Salih al-Usaymi, there is a clip with him, right? Should I follow a madhab or the most correct view? Should I follow a madhab or al-qaw or rajih? You can go back to that clip. And other scholars also, they clarify these issues very, very clearly. And many times, as Sheikh Salih al-Usaymi, he said, the reality of those who are thinking they are following the most correct view, they are actually blind following, because they only hear the verdict of one scholar with his evidence, and they are blind following him. If you really want to know the most correct view, study the verdict of all the scholars, study the evidences of all the scholars, then study the verdict of all of the hadith that they quote and the difference of opinion, and then try to come up with the most correct view. And that is now required from the layman. Allah says, ask the people of knowledge if you do not know. And you don't need to worry about the difference of opinion. Be truthful. Don't shop around for a fatwa. Know that Allah knows what is in your heart. Be truthful and just ask the people of knowledge. And if you see that your desire wants you to shop around, go against your desire. Now what if we have difference of opinion? Now what the layman should do? Right? The best answer I find to this is the answer of Sheikh Sa'ad al-Shitri, if I pronounce his name right. Huh? Shifri? Not Ta? I think it's Ta. Yeah, when he was asked this question, right, he gave there's two ways to deal with the most correct. If you have difference of opinion that reach you, as a person who is not a student of knowledge, you're not digging into all the difference of opinion and so, what should you do if you have a difference of opinion presented to you? The first thing, Allah says, ask the people of knowledge if you do not know. So if there is difference of opinion amongst the people of knowledge, then follow the view of the majority if you are confused, right? If you ask someone and they give you an opinion, a person of knowledge, a scholar, they give you a scholarly opinion, you follow it. But if you're confused with regards to the difference of opinion, what you do? The first thing, choose the view of the majority. You as a layman, I'm addressing who? The person who is not dedicating their life to studying. And the evidence for this is the verse itself. Allah says, ask the people of knowledge. Now if you do not differ, you follow the most of the people of knowledge. Now you're still in confusion, choose the safest thing. Choose the safest thing. You're in confusion. Should I, for example, with regards to coming into the masjid, is it permissible for a woman who is in her period to come into the masjid? You're in confusion, right? The vast majority of scholars, they say you can't come into the masjid, but you're still in confusion because the scholars who say you can come in, they have evidences, but you don't know what to do. What is the safest thing to do? Don't come into the masjid. when you have your period, and everyone agree you won't be sinning. So the safest thing, if you're in confusion, right? So that is the two ways to deal with the difference of opinion. Now, some people, they say, follow the one that is closest to the dalil. The layman, you will never know what is closest to the dalil. You will be deluded, yes. Because a scholar, he presented, or someone presented to you the dalil, from his point of view, is obviously going to look that that's the strongest view with regards to dalil. But if you really delve into the dalil, you're going to be confused. So you get those two ways to deal with the difference of opinion. We went in along, but I think it's very important to know this issue, and there won't be confusion amongst the ummah, and there was never confusion. The layman, the scholars that dealt with these issues, and they clarified these issues and guidelines, and all of them warn about this unity and fighting and all of those things just because of fiqh issue where the scholars had a right to differ, and they differ. And as we mentioned at the end, that these two matters, meaning whether the view went against ijma or whether it went against, it has no base, these two issues, the scholars themselves, they are the one who clarify these issues. Now with regards to the actual topic, inshaAllah ta'ala. We will run through all of the slides because we won't finish. So I will run through all of the slides, all of the headlines. Pay attention to it. If you see a topic that you didn't know exists, note it down. Wa inshallah ta'ala, nothing will be strange. These are not all of the topics of Tahaara, but the main topics of Tahaara. So we will come back to these in the beginning. These are some general fiqh issues, the fiqh of worship, the fiqh of dealing, mu'amalat. You have ruling concerning to salah, zakah, hajj, and ablution. Everyone know that. But you should know also there are business rulings, ruling concerning to business transaction, treaties, pledges, marriage, divorce. Right? Pay attention. It's very important. Many people, everyone is doing business. Maybe you will find 1 out of 100 businessmen who really went and asked about ruling concerning business. Right? They are ruling concerning the treaties, pledges, all of these things. They are guidelines. They are things that are haram to do. They are things that are permissible to do. They are things that is okay to do. They are things that you must do when it comes to these things. If you are in those fields, you have to study it. If you're not in those fields, you're not a businessman, you don't have to study business. If you're not going to get married, you don't have to study marriage. But if you're going to get married, you have to know the ruling of marriage. It becomes fard ayn. Once you get involved in any of these things, you must learn the ruling that has to do with these things. There are types of purification, ruling concerning to water, what water we can use to make wudu and do ghusl with. Things that are considered filth or impurities. If these things are on your clothing, on your body, you have to make sure that you wash it out before you pray or do ibadah. Ruling concerning utensils, what utensils you can use, what you cannot use. Relieving oneself when you're using a washroom, when you're relieving yourself. They are ruling concerning what you can do, what you can't do, where you can relieve yourself, where you can't relieve yourself. They are ruling the natural disposition or the fitrah. The scholars, they mention this in the bab of Tahaara sometimes. Ruling concerning wudu, when it is recommended, when it is obligatory. Condition for the validity of wudu. Obligation, obligatory aspects of the wudu, things you must do or the wudu is invalid. Sunnah aspects of the wudu, nullifiers of the wudu. Ruling concerning wearing the leather socks or the cloth socks. Ruling concerning the bandage, meaning when you wear a bandage, a plaster. Ruling concerning the khimar, the turban, meaning can you wipe over it when making wudu. The obligatory bath or the ghusl. When is it obligatory? You have the sunnah way, the sufficient way of making the bath. Ruling concerning tayammum, when you can't find water. Ruling concerning menstruation. ruling concerning istihada, which is bleeding that a woman has, but is not menstruation, nor is it postnatal bleeding. And then ruling concerning postnatal bleeding. And these generally is what the scholars, they cover in general. All of these topics is what they cover in the bab of Tahaara when you're dealing with purification. So now, as you can see, there's about 40 slides. We can't cover that in an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, one day. But we will try to go through, insha'Allah ta'ala, some of the main points that I think is going to be beneficial, or some of the things I may observe people going against or taking lightly and didn't realize. I may touch on some of those points, insha'Allah ta'ala. With regards to Tahaara, in general, as we know, there are two types of Tahaara. Tahaara from a hadath and Tahaara from a khabath. Hadath means a state of impurity. You're not physically impure. You're in a state of impurity, like when you when you use the bathroom and you clean yourself and everything, but you can't go and pray. You're in a state of impurity. And then you have the physical impurity, when you have filth on your clothes, your body, or your surrounding. Now, generally, with regards to filth, right? When it comes to worship, it is a must that you remove it. But if you are not in a state, you're not going to worship, meaning you're not going to pray, you're not going to do hajj, you're not going to do tawaf or an act of ibadah, right? If you're not going to do it, it's recommended to get rid of the filth. So let's say there is a dog, let's say there is dog urine in front of your home, right? It's not compulsory that you go and wash it out. But if you're going to pray on the spot, then you have to wash it. You have to wash it out. Similarly, if a dog walks past you and lick your garment or something, right? You're not sinning by not cleaning it until you're ready to pray. Until it's time to pray, then you must clean it. So purification from the hadath and khabath, when is it compulsory? When it's time for worship. When it's time for worship. Now, with regards to al-ma' al-tahur, with regards to purifying yourself, when it comes to from the hadath, making wudu and making ghusl, it must be from pure water. What is meant here by pure water is not the linguistic pure water, nor is it the scientific pure water. What is meant by pure water when they say al-ma' al-tahur is natural water, or any water that may naturally change. For example, you have rainwater passing through a creek, there's trees, there are leaves, it's naturally going to change. Right? That was not the original color of it. Like in Guyana, in the Caribbean, in tree area, you have something called black water that is red, right? Because of the trees. And so, it's still pure water because it changed naturally. But if you change the water and it is no longer water, then it is not natural water. You throw so much sugar in it that it becomes sugar water. You throw a tea bag in it, it becomes tea. You throw coffee grain in it, it becomes coffee. But if you throw a little one piece of the coffee grain in it, right, and nothing changed, it's still water. You're not going to say it's coffee. It's still water. So the pure water is the natural water that is permissible, is the clean, pure water that you still call water. Basic term, that you still call water. If you're not calling it water anymore, it's not water. You can't bathe with it, you can't make ghusl with it, you can't make wudu with it. The only exception is salt that was originally derived from water. If it is added to any amount of water, it's still considered pure. So let me say you take sea salt, right? Most of the salt, with the table salt we have originally is sea salt. And then you dump a whole bucket of sea salt in your reservoir, in your tank. The water is obviously going to become salty. It's salty water, it's salt water, but it's still, you can still use it to bathe. Why? Because that originally came from what? From water. And this is the view supported by many of the scholars on our time, including Sheikh bin Baz, Sheikh Uthaymeen, Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah, Sheikh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, and so on. Now, what if the water becomes mixed with filth? Well, in our situation, practically speaking, these things are not too applicable to us. But we're going to go through it briefly, because you turn on the pipe water. The basic ruling for all water is that it is as it is unless proven otherwise. So clean water is clean unless it is proven that it becomes filthy. Filthy water is filthy unless it is proven that it is thing. So if you have water from the sewage, right, it's dirty water unless something proved to it to be becomes clean. So someone can dip out some sewage water. You see it dipped in out sewage water, then he pour it through a strainer until it's pure, right? You got to prove that it is actually clean, because you see it clearly came out of the sewage. So water, whatever state it's known to be in, whether clean or filthy, it is in that state unless proven otherwise. Now the water from the tap, the water from the rain, the reservoir, the creeks and everything, all is considered pure water. So why this is important? Because a lot of people have wiswas, right? You go and you turn on the pipe water and you're worrying, is it pure water? Maybe the pipe broke somewhere. You go in the picnic or there's a creek, the only place you have to make wudu. You're worrying if a dog urinates somewhere, if a bear come and urinate in it, there's a dead bear maybe up the creek, pull it. You don't have to worry about any of those things. Now if pure water, if water is mixed with filth and it changes the color, taste and smell, it becomes impure without any difference of opinion. Right? Now, if the water does not change the color, taste, or smell, and it's a large amount of water, right, more than 160 liters approximately, and we'll get to how we get that, then it is, without difference of opinion, also it is clean, and that's obvious. So, if the water is changed, the color, taste, or smell or is changed, whether it's small amount, large amount, is impure. Now, if it is not changed, and it's a large amount of water, it is considered pure. Now, what if it's a small amount of water? Let's say this bottle of water, right? And a drop of blood fall into it, right? And you can't see any trace of the blood, right? You can't see any trace of the blood. You can't taste it, you can't smell it, you can't see it. Now, is this water still clean? We know that a drop of filth fall into it, but we can't see any trace. That is where the scholars, they differ, right? And the view that is supported, the view that is supported by our contemporary scholars like Sheikh Uthaymeen, Sheikh bin Baz, and the Maliki view, if I'm not mistaken, is as for Sheikh Uthaymeen, Sheikh bin Baz, and Sheikh al-Islam Taymiyyah, that is the view that they support. And I think also it is the view of the Maliki scholars, is that it is considered pure so long as you can't see any change. Now, why is it you had this difference? A lot of water, a small amount of water. It has to do with the hadith, إِذَا بَلَغَ الْمَاء قُلَّتَيْن لَمْ يَحْمِلِ الْخَبَثِ. If the water reaches the amount of قُلَّتَيْن, which is approximately 160 liters of water, it will not carry the filth. Now the hadith say what? If the water reach قُلَّتَيْن, approximately 160 liters, it will not carry the filth. It will not be affected by the filth. Now what if it is less than قُلَّتَيْن? The hadith didn't give you that verdict. The understanding is, if it is less, it will carry the filth. But when you say something, the opposite of it doesn't necessarily means it has a ruling. Right? If you say, if the water reach, if for example, if I tell you, if you see Hamza coming in the masjid with his thawb on, in the madrasa we have the ruling, you have to come dressed properly. You say if you see Hamza coming in the masjid with his thawb on, then allow him to enter. Right? Now if he doesn't come in with his thawb on, the understanding, don't allow him to enter, but I didn't really say the ruling. If he doesn't come in, we can allow him to enter, we can punish him, we can do anything, the ruling can be something else, right? The purpose of this here is just to get a little insight of how they think with regards to with regards to the hadith. That's why I left this one. Blank. I just said there's a difference of opinion, but the view that is supported. But this, inshallah ta'ala, if you want to stay safe, drop of water, you're not out of water. Drop of blood, urine, anything fall into a small amount of water. You're not out of water, you want to be safe, throw the water away. Use it to flush your toilet or something and make wudu with water that you are sure about. That is not a big issue. Right? That is not a big issue. Alhamdulillah for us, and inshallah ta'ala, it will never be a big issue. In other states, maybe it's starting to be an issue. Now, what is filth? What is filth? What is considered filth that we need to keep clean from? You have the urine of human beings and the urine of, the stool and the urine of human beings without any difference of opinion. When there is a consensus, we don't need to worry about the evidence, especially for the person who just wants to know what he has to do. Right? Blood that gush forth from slaughtered animal, also consensus. No, the blood that gush forth from slaughtered animal. You slaughter the animal, that blood that gush forth. When the animal stops flowing, whatever blood remains inside is not filth. Rather, it's even permissible to eat and to cook with it. Right? And there is benefit in that. Whether you want to do it or not, whether you want to wash the meat clean, there is not. You know, and people here, when you talk in the context of cooking, you see they have that disgust face. But they will go and eat what do you call it? What kind steak would you say? Not, huh? What is the terminology used? Huh? Rare cook? Yeah, they will go and eat and the blood that's inside is dripping out and they wouldn't have any problem with that. But you tell them about cooking your meat and don't wash it out too much, yeah, they have a problem with it. So it's the same thing. That blood there is not filth. The blood that remains in the meat and the companions, they used to cook with it. The blood that remains in the meat, the companions used to cook with it. Rather, there is Shaykh al-Islam in Taimi, he said is a kind of bid'ah to wash it out too clean. Right? It's not something that was known to have been done. And this has to do with more of the dunya. So you wash it or you don't wash it. It's just a side note. Postnatal blood, menstruation blood, filth without difference of opinion. All other blood, with the exception of the blood of the martyr, once on him, and we come back to the blood of the martyr briefly. All of the blood is considered filth. What do you mean by all other blood? Meaning, the blood of cuts, the blood of any other animal, right? Apart from animal that you slaughter, whether it gush forth or doesn't gush forth. All other blood is considered filth, right? And you see I mentioned consensus amongst the Salaf. There is a difference of opinion today, right? Some scholars, they say that it is not filth. If you have a cut and blood is flowing from you, and it messed your clothes up and everything, they said that it is not filth, and they use as evidence the incidents where Umar radiallahu anhu, he was stabbed and he prayed in his clothing. But the Salaf, Imam Ahmad, Qurtubi, right, in Nawawi and so on, Ibn Rushd, Ibn Qudama, all of them, Ibn Hajar, all of them, they transmitted this consensus that the blood, all out of blood. Now I categorize it like this to just know the opinion. Say in general, all blood, right, except for the blood that remains in the animal after you slaughter, is considered filth. And that is the most correct and the safest view. All blood, whether you get a cut, whether it's flowing, right, all other blood. The only exception that the Salaf give, meaning from the four madhahib and the companions, the only exception that they give is a small amount of blood, right? They all agree that if you get a little prick or something, a small blood get on your clothes, something that you look down upon. How you know small amount is something you look down upon. You don't take it anywhere. That blood is ma'fu anhu, is where you say maybe pardoned or forgiven. You don't have to clean it out. But all other blood, it is clean. As for those narration where the companions, they prayed in their blood and so on, that's where the exception. The blood of a martyr, once it's still on him, right? You didn't remove the blood or wash it out. The evidence they use for that, those who choose that view, is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. He mentioned to keep don't wash the martyr, right? If it was filth, you would have to clean him, bathe him, and wash him. And also on the day of judgment, he is going to be resurrected with his blood. But it will be blood, but the smell will be misk. And so on. And as for where Umar was stabbed and so on, they said that that is because you are about to die and you have the salah, right? So if he go wash, bandage up, I think that he's going to pass away maybe, and he's not going to be able to pray. So all of those are special cases. So the view of the vast majority of scholars and the consensus that was narrated to us of the Salaf is that all blood is filth. All blood is considered filth. And this here is important, especially when it comes to difference of opinion, you're confused. Just try to see who supported that opinion from the Salaf. Anytime you're confused about difference of opinion, right? You're confused. Should I touch the mushaf with wudu or without wudu? Should I enter the masjid if I'm in a state, if I'm menstruating or postnatal bleeding? Everybody's arguing. Just see how it was supported amongst the Salaf. And the unfortunate thing, we claim to follow the Salaf, and we don't know their verdicts, and we are not following the view that is supported by the vast majority of them, and we don't even have a clue of their views. The urine and stool of animal that is forbidden as food, that is consensus. Any animal that you can't eat, their urine and stool is forbidden. Any animal that you can't eat, the urine and stool is what? Najis, is filth. Their urine and stool is filth. So if you're praying in the park and a pigeon poop on you, right? You don't have to cut your salah, you don't have to do anything. Finish your salah. But if an eagle pass and urine on you or poop on you, right, theoretically speaking, then you have to cut your salah. And this is practical. In our time and before, you may be in the park, right? You may see bird, pigeon poop or so around you, right? You don't have to be in that distress. Go and get clean your clothes and everything. You pray in peace. And the evidence that the urine and stool of animals that are permissible to eat, that it is not filth, the evidence for that is many. Among them is the cure. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that there is cure in the urine of the camel. Also the Prophet ﷺ, he gives permission, and he says permissible to pray in the area where the sheep and the goat, they sleep. And that area is definitely going to be filled with filth. Right? It's definitely going to be filled with the linguistic filth of the animal. But it's not a Sharia filth. It's not considered filth with regards to legislation and rulings. Pig and everything connected to it, the vast majority of scholars, rather some scholars like Ibn Qudama, Nawawi and others, they say there is consensus on the issue. That everything with pig and everything connected to it is filth. Dogs and everything connected to it is also filth, and that is the majority of scholars, with the exception of some of the Malikis. But the safest thing is to follow the majority in these issues of filth and so on. Dead animals, meaning animals that are not Islamically killed. In general, dead animals that are not Islamically killed, or animals that are dead that you can't eat, like snakes, wolves, fox, and those things, bear, and so. Everything to do with it, dead, is filth. Now, with regards to the skin of these animals, you know, people use bear skin and snake skin as leather and belt and these things, shoes and these things. Now, with regards to the skin, you know, when you tanned the skin to clean it and purify it and to use it, now if it is not tanned, without difference of opinion, it is filth. Now, if it is tanned, is it filth or not? There is where there is difference of opinion, and alhamdulillah, you can stay safe. You don't need to use skin, snake skin, bear skin. You don't need to use those things. So we won't get into too much details with regards to that. So the safest thing with regards to dead animals, stay away from everything connecting to it. With regards to dead animals, with the exception of animals that you eat, like the goat and the sheep, their skin, if it is tanned. If you tan the skin, you can use it. So you don't have to worry about clothing or shoes made from cow leather and goat leather and sheep leather, if that you got cow, goat and sheep leather exists. Yeah. So once you can eat the animal, the skin is good once it is tanned. any fluid that exists from the place of urine and stool except for semen. So anything that exists, urine, stool, and anything that exits from those two areas is considered filth, with the exception of semen. Now there is a note. With regards to human urine, right? There is an exception with regards to the urine of the young boy who haven't eaten. As Prophet ﷺ, he said, يُغْسَلْ مِنْ بَوْلِ الْجَارِيَةِ وَيُرَشْ مِنْ بَوْلِ الْغُلَامِ. The urine of a young girl, you wash it. And the urine of a young boy who haven't eaten, right? You just sprinkle some water on it. It didn't reach 7 as yet, right? Yeah, you sprinkle some water on it. Now, that is with regards to cleaning the urine, right? Now, with regards to the urine itself, it is still filth, right? Note, consensus is reported concerning the urine of a baby boy who haven't eaten from desire being impure, right? The urine itself is filth. But the Prophet ﷺ, the filth is light. So the Prophet ﷺ, he gave permission to just sprinkle water in it. But that doesn't mean it is not filth. Right? And among the scholars who mention this is Imam an-Nawawi. Right? He mentioned that there is consensus and they only differ with regards to how you should clean it. And that is important to note. Before we continue, many times you find these scholars mention there's consensus and issues. When I said reported consensus, right, to show the support of that view amongst the vast majority of scholars, at least, even though you might find one or two who differ, right? But when there is a reported consensus, it shows the vast majority or the vast support of that view. Yeah. And the existence of other views does not necessarily contradict there being a consensus. Why? It may be that view came afterwards, right? Or it may be that view is what they call shadh, has no supported evidence, and so on. But that is not the topic. That was the other topic, inshallah. Now, ruling concerning utensils. In general, as you know, we cannot eat from utensils that are made of gold and silver. The only exception is a little amount of gold for mending a broken container, and the evidence for that is mentioned there. Relieving oneself. There are many rulings concerning relieving oneself. Many of these are very applicable to those of us, people who came from the Caribbean and your family living in the Caribbean. These rulings are 100% applicable to the Caribbean, in Guyana and so on. Right? Almost all of these things, you see people contradicting it. Almost all of them. But I will point out one. It is not permissible to wipe with less than 3 times. It's not permissible to wipe, less than 3 times when you're cleaning yourself. If you're only going to use paper towel or tissue or toilet paper, right? You can't just wipe one, whether it's clean or not. You have to at least use 3 wipes, right? Not necessarily 3 wipes. 3 wipes from 3 different clean spots. Meaning, okay, let's say you have a rock. Right? A rock in the shape of a square. Right? So in the shape of a square, and it's big enough, each side, you can wipe from each side. Right? And in those times, no paper towel, it's rocks and stones and wood you're using. Right? So each spot, each face of the rock is considered 1 wipe. But you can't wipe 2 times from one face and consider it 1. Right? And you don't need 3 different rocks, so long as they are different face that you can use. So you do qiyas on that with regards to the paper towel. How much time you can flip it or fold it or whatsoever. But you must wipe at least 3 times. You must wipe at least 3 times, and the evidence for that is in the hadith below. Relieving oneself, forbidden to urinate in stagnant water. It's very practical in those living in the Caribbean. I'm speaking about the Caribbean because that is where I came from. I don't know too much practical what is happening out of in the other areas, right? maybe we can, this one, not permissible to urinate in the roadway of the people. Right? You find people, they're doing that here, coming out of their car or in the pavement, and so some areas you walk, you can clearly smell that someone urinate, or you urinate in the shade of someone, where people are, maybe pass or stop for a shade or something. Those things, they cause you to be coarse, as the Prophet ﷺ said, ittaqu al-la'anain. Fade the two things, or stay away from the two things that cause you to be coarse. The fitra, the natural disposition, as we all know, the fitra, right? Circumcision, shaving the pubic area, clipping the nails, cutting the moustache short. With regards to wudu, are we going to just touch? With regards to touching the mushaf without a barrier. Now this here is where there's a lot of debate today. Even though there wasn't too much debate before, but there's a lot of debate today. And the vast majority of scholars, including the four imam, they say that you have to make wudu to touch the mushaf. The vast majority of scholars, including all four madhahib. And also there are some scholars who say there's ijma on this issue. There are some scholars who say there's ijma on this issue. And most of the time when they say there's an ijma of the issue and yet you find a verdict, the verdict comes from the Zahiriya, right? Dawood and those who supported the madhab of Zahiriya. And the scholars, they have different approach to how you deal with the Zahiriya, the madhab of the Zahiriya. But we are not getting to that. So the safest thing, at least to do, is make sure you make wudu when you are touching the mushaf. Now, and this view existed in that time, right? In that time when it is more difficult to touch the mushaf. Now you have the phone, easy to make wudu. There is so much way easy, it's just that we are lazy, right? Okay. This here was a lot of evidences, but we're not going to get into that. Validity of making wudu, obligatory aspects of making wudu. Number 5 and 6, making the wudu in order and making consistency without long pause. Now teach your children these two things. I asked some of the students from the madrasa, they say if you mix it up, the order is okay, right? So you got to teach your children. They're not going to know anything, obviously, as we said, right? They're just going to know it. You have to make it in order. You have to be consistent without long pause. Making it order. What is the benefit of this? You wash your mouth, you wash your nose, then you wash your hand. You forget the face, right? You can't just wash the face and continue. You got to go back and continue in order. That is the benefit when you make a mistake. Similarly, consistency. You wash your hand, you reach your face, someone call you, end up talking to them on the phone, and the face dried out. Naturally, you got to go and start again. You can't just continue. Sunnah aspects of making wudu, nullifiers of wudu. Now, with regards to anything is a plane of urine excretion without difference of opinion, if filth exit from the body, except for a small amount of blood, losing consciousness, deep sleep, touching the private parts, safest thing, make wudu, their difference of opinion, eating camel meat. Right? The majority of scholars say you don't have to make wudu, but always be safe. These things you be safe is act of worship. Make wudu is not something difficult. The hadith, the scholars who say that you should make wudu, the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, yes, make wudu when you eat meat. Now, is that command an obligatory command, meaning a command upon obligation, or is it a recommended command? As we know, when the Prophet ﷺ commands us to do something, he can command it from the angle of being obligatory or being recommended. But the safest thing, you make wudu, and apostasy from Islam. Apostasy nullifies everything. It nullifies your tawheed, your wudu, your salah, everything. Now, how is this practicable for us? And inshallah, it should not be practicable for us. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from this being practicable to us. How is it practicable to us? You have people who are there going through problems, aqidah problems in their life, right? And they may do something, let me say someone, they make wudu, right? They make wudu, and then they curse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, takes them out of religion. They can't say astaghfirullah and then they go and pray. You understand? You got to repent. You pronounce the Shahadatain, make wudu, make ghusl upon the verdict of some of the scholars. You understand how is it practical? Right? You don't just say astaghfirullah and go and pray. Everything you did nullified. If someone, they curse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knowingly about what they are doing. Ruling concerning to the khuf, we will just, with regards to the khuf being permissible, teach your children they have to make wudu before they put on the socks, or whether it's leather or cloth. You got to make wudu before you put on the socks for it to be permissible for you to wipe over it. Right? Many of the students coming to the madrasa, they're wiping over the socks. They made wudu home. No, we didn't make wudu home. You have to make wudu before you put on the socks, and you have 1 day and 1 night to wipe, and 3 days and 3 nights to wipe if you're a traveler. 1 day and 1 night if you are a resident, if you're home. 3 days and 3 nights if you are traveling. That is from the time your wudu break after you put on the socks. The time starts from the time your wudu break after you put on your socks. So let's say you put on your socks, you take it off, your wudu never break. You put it on back, your wudu never break. The kong doesn't start. But once your wudu break and the socks is on, that's where the kong starts. So if you take it off, put it on 100 times before your wudu break, it doesn't matter. Right? It doesn't matter. But if your wudu break, you can't just take it off now. If your wudu break and you take it off, you got to wash back your feet the next time you make wudu. Okay, the nullified validity. Okay, read us. The bandage, the difference if you put on a bandage, the bandage must only cover what is necessary. What is necessary is two things: the actual spot of injury and what's around that spot to hold the bandage. Right? The actual spot and what's around the spot to hold the bandage properly. And many people, this here, as obvious in my song, they try to reduce the spot and the bandage don't hold. But that is permissible. You cover the spot and around that spot what is necessary. And with regards to the bandage, there is no time limit because it has to do with the need. So long as the need exists, you keep it on. But the difference is with regards to the bandage, if you can wash over it, you have to wash over it. If you can wipe over it, you have to wipe over it, and you have to wipe everything. With the foot, the socks, you pass your hand. You don't necessarily have to touch every single spot of the foot or over the socks. But with regards to the bandage, you have to make sure you wipe every single spot. That is the two difference, or one of the two differences. The turban or the khimar, some of the scholars, they said, well, the Prophet ﷺ, it is reported that he would wipe over his turban, right? That is a turban that is wrapped in a way that is difficult to take out, right? The way they would wrap it. Some of the scholars, they say it's closer to the way the Sudanese, they wrap their turban. Not the shimag like the Saudis and the Hijazis, the way they just throw over the thing, easy to one wind it blow off or so. Right? The turban that's difficult to take off. And some of the scholars, they say from this, right? If it's permissible for the man to wipe over the turban, then more so the woman is permissible for her to wipe over the khimar. But that issue, there's no difference. There's no consensus. So the safest thing, if the woman is in public or is difficult, try push her hand up the khimar and wipe something from the hair. And many of the scholars say that is sufficient, just to cover some of the hair. If it is 100% difficult, then you can use the rukhsa. Then you use the rukhsa. The rukhsa, when it's difference of opinion, don't just take it lightly if you have the ability to do it. What is the obligatory bath? As we know, when is it compulsory to take an obligatory bath? Now pay attention to this, something that may seem obvious, but we get a lot of questions, and you see questions to the scholars with regards to this. If semen gush forth from an individual with pleasure whilst he is awake. With pleasure whilst he is awake, right? If it gush forth because of a sickness, you don't need to take a bath. If the semen gush forth from an individual while he's asleep, right? While you're asleep, which is the wet dream. Now the wet dream has to do with the gush forth of the semen, and it's enough to see the traces after you wake up. Even if you can't remember the dream or you can't remember anything gush forth, you see the traces. And it's not urine, right? If someone who maybe they have problems, they urinate at night, they urine in their sleep, right? So long as it's not urine. but enough to see the trace. The dream, if you remember the dream and you see no trace, there is no need for ghusl. The ghusl has to do with the semen, not the dream. That is one misconception. The second thing is sexual intercourse, even without ejaculation. Once there is intercourse, insertion, you have to do ghusl, ejaculate or you didn't ejaculate. Now, intercourse means intercourse. There's insertion. It doesn't mean sleeping with your wife, foreplay or those things. And one person, they complain they don't have another bed, and in the morning, they need to rush out to work, they're not able to bathe, so they sleep in the couch. Because they think, when the scholars say sleeping with your wife, means when you sleep with your wife, they're bathing every morning, they're bathing without the need. But that is not what is meant. What is meant is the intercourse. And these things, when you're teaching your children, teach them straight up. Don't use too much metaphor. Just be decent. But at the same time, don't use too much metaphor that they're going to be ashamed to ask you details. Because a lot of young people, when you're teaching them something for the first time, remember they don't have any clue that this viewing exists. Now you're going to teach them that if you sleep with your wife, you have to bathe. They're going to take it like that. If you sleep with your wife, you have to bathe. They never studied it before. So let them know the actual ruling. Be decent and modest in the way you speak, but let them know the actual ruling, and teach your children. And if you are ashamed to teach children, facilitate for them classes for them to be taught. At the end of menstruation and postnatal bleeding, the Islam of a kafir and death. These two, they are difference of opinion. If a person accepts Islam, right, if he need to take a bath, and if the person who died, should he take a bath? Meaning, should you bathe the dead, right? But the safest thing is that you should bathe the dead, give him his right, and the Islam of the kafir, you should advise them to take a bath. Now, those who say they don't have to take a bath, they said that so much hundreds of people being accepted in Islam, in the Prophet Islam, and there is no dalil that he command them to take a bath, right? But that really is an evidence for those who say you have to take a bath. Why? You know the story of Thumama, right? Who the Prophet ﷺ tied up in the masjid for 3 days. What he did at the last day, he went and take a bath. Who told him to take a bath? It was something that was so known, widespread, known amongst everybody, the Muslims and the disbelievers. There wasn't no need to keep repeating it. It was so widespread. So the verdict that you have to take a bath is safer and is strong in reality. Because something that is so widespread, right? You don't need the need for it to be repeated. The same thing with regards to the woman entering the masjid. When Aisha when the Prophet ﷺ asked her to give him something, what she said? She said at time menstruating. Why she said she's menstruating? Because it's already known that the menstruating woman cannot enter into the masjid. And this is the verdict by the vast majority of scholars, all the madhahib, and what is reported from the companions and so on. Rather, there are consensus that a woman should not enter the masjid if she's menstruating, and this is the view supported also by the vast majority of scholars of our time. Sheikh Muhammad Salih al-Uthaymeen, Sheikh bin Baz. It is the fatwa of the Lajna Da'ima, the standing, how do you translate, the standing committee or the permanent committee for scholars. It is their fatwa, all of them, Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan, all of them, they support this view that a woman should not enter the masjid if she is in the state of menstruation. And that is the view of all of the madhahib. What is when is the bath recommended? The sunnah way is sufficient. The sunnah way is how the Prophet used to take a bath. The sufficient way is just to wash your body from head to toe, and wash your mouth and your nose to be safe. Wash your mouth and your nose also to be safe. Now we just take a pause on one thing. The condition of order, tartib, and consistency does not apply to the bath. Now when we say this condition doesn't apply to the bath, right? Anything to do with condition, you always try to do the best, right? You bathe consistently and you bathe in the sunnah way. Right? Tartib meaning if you wash your head first, you wash your foot first, you wash your mouth first, it doesn't matter when it comes to bath. Consistency mean what? Let me say you wash your head. Let me say you wash your head, right? You need to take a bath. It's a must to take a bath. You wash your head, and then you go to sleep. And in the morning, then you wash from your neck go down. You wasn't consistent, right? You wash it 2 different times. So with regards to the bath, that is permissible, right? With regards to the bath, that is permissible. Now when we say it is permissible, there might be a case where you need to, right? You need to take a bath in the night. You're in a state of janaba, sexual impurity. The morning, you know it's going to be very cold. You wash your head, you dry it with a hair dryer, and you go to sleep. Because you know you got to take a shower for work, right? And then in the morning, with the intention that it be the same ghusl for janaba, you wash the rest of your body. It's permissible. Another application, let me say you wash your entire body, you forget to wash your mouth and your nose, you already put on your clothes, your tie, your suit, your hat. You just go by the pipe, wash your mouth and your nose, and you're good. Because consistency is not a condition, right? So that is where it's applicable. Where is this applicable? And you may apply that ruling. Tayammum, if you are out of water, you can't make wudu because of sickness or something, as Allah mentioned. You can't get water, which is not too practicable for us. Or you are sick, you can't use water to make wudu, right? You can't use water to make wudu, to wash the places of wudu. Then you make tayammum by just touching the soil, right? You touch the soil with your hand. Then you can blow out the excess and just wipe once over the palm, once over the palm. You don't have to wipe all the way to the wrist. Sorry, you wipe your face once and then your palm over your palm. You wipe your face first and then you wipe over your palm. I touch both hands and shake out and wipe the face and the upper part, the backside of the palm. Note, any salah with tayammum without a reason or its condition must be repeated, right? If you make a salah with tayammum without the reason, you need to repeat the salah. And likewise, if you do salah with a tayammum and it was permissible for you and then you find water, there's no need to repeat the salah that you already made. We will pause. Then with regards to menstruation, and this here is one of the sensitive topic. Right? A lot of difference of opinion, a lot of debate with regards to menstruation. Now my advice to sisters, if you're in a clear situation, if you're in a clear guidance with regards to your case, your situation, don't confuse yourself. Right? Don't confuse yourself with too much opinion and anything, not even any opinion rather. Your menstruation is in order, it's systematic, you don't have any trouble. Don't get technical with regards to your state, or you went and you asked a scholar, a learned person that you trust their knowledge with regards to your specific situation that you're in, and you are comfortable and you know what you're doing. Don't confuse yourself with the difference of opinion that for the general person is what is required of you. It's not required of you. Allah says, ask the people of knowledge if you don't know. He didn't say go check out the books of fiqh, read hadith, do ijtihad. You don't know, ask. Right? So with regards to your situation, you ask someone and they give you a fatwa, someone who is learned, and many times you find when Sheikh Uthaymeen, he is asked. And the person who asked him the question said, I did this because of another sheikh. He will tell him, if you did that because of another sheikh, then that is you and that sheikh. There's nothing wrong. You didn't do any sin. But if you ask me, then this is what you should be doing. Right? And many times you will find if there's difference of opinion, at the end of his fatwa, he's going to say, there's difference of opinion. Why is saying there's difference of opinion? To know that there's some room for flexibility with regards to the fatwa. With regards to the fatwa. As for what the sheikh see to be most correct, that's what the sheikh see to be most correct. So the way we deal with it, as we mentioned in the beginning of the class, is very, very important. So we don't confuse ourselves and we don't confuse others. Now there are different points the scholars they deal with when it comes to menstruation. The earliest age of menstruation, right? The earliest age of menstruation, all the four madhahib, they agree that it is 9 years, right? All the four madhahib, they agree that it is 9 years. Now when these madhahib, when they are giving you principles and so with regards to ibadah, they don't look at the scarce and rare situation. As they say, an-nadir la hukma lah. The thing that is strange and scarce and hardly happen, you don't build a verdict upon it. Like someone, they ask, what's the ruling on flying in the airplane? And then someone say, you can't fly in the airplane because if the fire burst out in the plane, where are you going to go? Now, how much time that's happening? Right? They said statistically, with regards to statistics, the airplane is the safest mode of transportation when it comes to the percentage of incidents or accidents or cases. Right? So that you don't build a verdict on scarce situations. So generally speaking, a woman, she will not menstruate before the age of 9. And the use of evidence for that is the hadith or the statement of Aisha. She said when a young girl reaches the age of 9, she is a woman. Meaning from that age is when she will receive her period. So if she see blood before that age, every now and then coming and going, and it's confusing, she don't have to pay attention. It's not menstruation, and it doesn't have any ruling, right? She just keep herself clean. Now, if she see blood, 100% like the description of menstruation, remember we said there might be rare cases, yes, then she treat it as menstruation, right? 100% is a systematic menstruation. No sickness, no extra bleeding, nothing. Yeah, you treat it as menstruation. And that's a rare case. You're going to count maybe how many people you come across in your life. Maybe if you ever come across anyone who menstruates at that age. And the latest age of menstruation, this here in general too, there is some difference of opinion, but the view supported by many scholars is that there is no age limit to menstruation, because once there is bleeding, you consider it menstruation, and different location, it may vary. Many of the scholars, they choose the view that it's 50 years because of their environment and what was normal for the women of their time. Now, before we continue on this topic, there's something I forget to mention. There is something that I forget to mention, and that is, when it comes to menstruation, right? There's two things that is connected to menstruation. One is nature and one is ahkam. Nature and rulings. Menstruation is a natural phenomenon. That's the word? Right? A natural thing. Right? Nature. Right? So there is no need for you to find a lot of Sharia definition or guidelines with regards to the natural and the nature of menstruation, because something that has to do with nature. For example, you have urine. You don't need to go through a lot of technical definition of what is urine, the color of urine, and all of those things. Everyone knows what is urine. It has to do with nature, but there is religious rulings attached to it. And if you look at the way these four madhahib dealt with it, they dealt with it with that. Even though they didn't see it, but if you compare how they dealt with it in general, compared to other scholars, like for example, you find a lot, they will say there is no evidence for this, there is no evidence for that. There's different approach how the scholars, they approach this issue, but I'm only going to present from the four madhahib, and that is the views that are widely accepted and widely supported by many scholars. Yes, some of our contemporary scholars, they may choose other views. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, he had a different approach altogether with regards to menstruation. As we mentioned in the beginning of the class, this slide, and those who of you who are now joining or join late, go back to the introduction we give at the beginning of the class. Is important, right? It's important. The introduction we give at the beginning of the class is not meant to class any supported views that had a right to any supported views as being a wrong view in the sense of an ithm or a munkar. And at the same time, if you have views being presented to you different than what you have, don't just label it, especially if it is supported, widely supported by scholars. And these are the biggest of the scholars, the mujtahideen, without difference of opinion that these scholars are the mujtahideen. So a lot of these things has to do with nature. A lot of these things has to do with nature, and we will give some examples. So with regards to the latest age of menstruation, he said a woman will continue to menstruate so long as she see menstruation. Meaning, if she reaches 60 and she still see menstruation, she treat it as menstruation. The normal period of menstruation is 6 to 7 days, and this is proven in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, count your menstruation as 6 to 7 days. The hadith of Hamna bint Jahsh, that when she complained to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam of consistent bleeding, he said, count your menstruation as 6 of 7 days. Now, if your menstruation is normal for the woman, right, you don't have any worries. All of the complication come when there is complication in the menstruation. Now, the shortest period of menstruation, now this here in general there is difference of opinion. Meaning shortest period meaning what? What is the least time a woman may menstruate for? And in general, there is no shortest period for menstruation. This is the view of the Malikis and the view favored by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Baz, and Ibn Uthaymeen. So what is meant by this? Meaning a woman can menstruate for 1 hour, for 2 hours, right? Now, there is a view that says the shortest period is 1 day and 1 night. So upon that view, let me say a woman menstruate for 1 hour and then see her period. So let's say it's Ramadan month, right? If it's not Ramadan, it won't affect anything. Because 1 hour, you will still have time to pray somehow, right? Most of the time. But let's say it's Ramadan. It's more practical in Ramadan. Let's say Ramadan, a woman, she see blood, right? For 1 hour, right? Now, the view that say the menstruation has to be at least 1 day and 1 night, her fasting is still correct. But the view that say there is no limit, meaning even if you see blood for 1 hour, your fast is invalid, you have to make up. Now there's a view that say 3 days. So if she doesn't bleed for 3 days, it's not menstruation. So if she bleeds for 2 days, her fast, those 2 days fast is correct, right? But the view, as we said, that we present here is the view that the shortest period, there's no limit. So a woman, her blood can gush forth for an hour, half an hour, and her period is finished. That is her cycle. That's how her cycle stays. The longest period of menstruation, in this way there is more debate. The longest period of menstruation is 15 days. And this is the view of most of the scholars. The view of the Hanafis is that it is 10 days. And the view of the other 3 madhahib is that it is 15 days. So all of the 4 madhahib, they agree that it won't pass 15 days. The Hanafi said it won't pass 10 days. And the other 3 madhahib, they say it wouldn't pass 15 days. And this view here is closer to science. In science, in medicine, they will say a woman, generally, the Hanafi, they are even closer. They say generally a woman will not have menstruation for more than 10 days. What bleeds after that, right, is because of some other reason. And you can research it for yourself. So the Hanafi view, they are closer to science. But the majority, they say 15 days. Right? And that is the view also of the majority of scholars of our time. Some of the big scholars, like Shaykh Uthaymeen and so, yes, they choose the view that there is no limit. But remember we have a lot of scholars, so don't come and tell me that asking me if I have a better understanding of Shaykh Uthaymeen. I'm presenting the view of who? The 4 madhahib. Right? Those emotional debates, when there is difference of opinion, it has no room. There's no place for those emotional debate. You know better than this one or that one. If there is difference of opinion, we mentioned is supporting evidence existed throughout history by scholars, big scholars, right? There's no room. Don't come with those debates. Those are commercial debates to force your opinion upon somebody else. So all 4 madhahib, they agree upon that menstruation will not last more than 15 days, and this is supported by science. And as we said, if you understand, this is the actual menstruation has more to do with nature, right? It's a natural phenomenon. So will not menstruate for more than 15 days. So if a woman, she is bleeding and it passed 15 days, she take a bath and she pray her salah. If she is still bleeding, she make wudu for each salah. Her fasting is correct. She don't have to be making up Ramadan. Once it passed 15 days, you take a bath. Take a bath and you're fasting. You can fast and so on. Once it passed 15 days. Now those who say there is no limit to menstruation, they themselves contradict themselves. Because they will say there is no limit, and at the same time they will say, but she will not menstruate for the entire month. Okay, so where is the cut-off time? Like once Sheikh, I heard him saying she will not menstruate for 27 or 28 days. So which one? 27 or 28? You got to cut off somewhere. Because istihaba, which is excess bleeding, we all agree it exists. So where is the cut-off point for the istihaba? You understand? So even that view, they didn't run away from the problem. They're still in some problem. And all of the views, there's a give and take from some side. There's either give and take from the aspect of being safe with regards to your worship, or being safe with regards to your purity. And as I said before, if you are in clear guidance with regards to your situation, you don't have anything to worry about. You ask someone with regards to your situation, and you're working upon that, you don't have to worry. If you get confused because of this class, just stick to what you learned before from your trustworthy sheikh, if you know that they are trustworthy. And one thing also to mention, and as we mentioned also, if they give you a view and you don't know if the view exists, do your research. And most of the time, inshallah, the vast majority of women, the menstruation will not last more than 10, 15 days. Now the shortest gap between two menstruation, how it stands on time? Yeah, we got to speed up. Okay, the shortest gap between two menstruation is 13 days, and this also there is difference of opinion. Now this here, this here is proven in this narration we mentioned here by Ali radiallahu an. We're not going through, just to be concise. Now, what is the benefit of this? This can give you a lot of ease for those women who are bleeding a lot. You had your menstruation, right? We said the shortest gap between two menstruation is what? 13 days. So if you had your menstruation, you can't get your next menstruation within 13 days. Within 13 days, right? 13 days at least must pass. But there's something to note, is that your menstruation can be broken within the 15 days. So we said 15 days is maximum time. But you can menstruate for 5 days, then you have purity for 2-3 days, then you continue your menstruation. Afterwards, you see back blood for the next 2-3 days. But the total menstruation will not pass 15 days. Now, when that 15 days is over, between that 15 days to the next menstruation, right, you must at least have 13 days of purity. So if you see any blood within that, you don't pay attention to it with regards to your fasting, and with regards to praying, you just make wudu, clean yourself, and pray. And these guidelines supported by the scholars is going to make your life easy compared to saying there is no limit. When you say there is no limit, you put them in more trouble, right? And the evidence for this limit is in this narration. It didn't just come with this limit. And this is the view of Imam Ahmad and supported by other scholars. Yeah, the least time between two menstruation is 13 days. And as we mentioned, the period can be broken up within the 15 days. Now, how you know that your period, we will jump to an important thing. How you know that your period is over is not just when you stop bleeding. There's 2 signs to know that the period is over. Dryness, meaning you insert a cotton or something and it came out back without blood. That is one. Or a white discharge. If you don't see those 2, Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, don't make haste until you see the white discharge. And in other words, until you see the dryness. Don't rush to be bathing, praying. If you don't see the sign of that the period or the postnatal bleeding is over, it's not over. And the basic ruling is that a woman is in the state or original state unless proven otherwise. Remember, this ruling going to make your life easy. If you are pure, you are not menstruating unless you show you're menstruating. And if you're menstruating, you are not pure unless you show you are pure. So don't be back and forth bathing, and don't pay attention to any wiswas. Don't pay attention to the wiswas until you see the dryness. And as we said, the sign of purity is the dryness and the white discharge, as Aisha radiallahu anha, she said. Now the random issues, the ruling of spotting. Spotting, if you see spots. Menstruation means flow. It's a had al-wadi, mean the valley flow with water. So anything that is not flowing is not menstruation. So if you see in spots and those things, bloods and so, don't pay attention to it. It's not menstruation. Menstruation got to be a what? A flow. Even if it is one duf'a, one flow out, lasts for half an hour, an hour, right, is menstruation. But if it's not a flow, is not menstruation. And so you don't need to worry about all those spots and all those dots you see in. It's not menstruation linguistically nor in the Sharia point of view. And there are other topics. I think this topic is a very large topic. Maybe inshallah sometime if there is requests or so, maybe we can present it in a more detailed fashion, go through step by step, inshallah ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us our sins. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive me for whatever mistake may have been made during any of the presentation and our presentation today. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in knowledge and benefit us from that which He taught us. And again, we remind you that as for yesterday, those who are following online, as for the lecture yesterday, we upload the full thing. The piece at the end was cut out. The full lecture is uploaded. And also, please keep follow the Masjid channel and also download the Masjid app to keep up to date with regards to what is happening in the Masjid and to register, please. Register. The registration is on the Masjid site, right? You can, on the Masjid app, you can scan the QR code. You can click on the link on the app. You are going to find the register. And the notes, you're going to receive the notes at the end. You're going to receive the notes at the end. As for now, take your own notes and pay attention. Right? We don't want to distract you. At the end, inshallah, we're going to finish Friday. Inshallah ta'ala, by Saturday, Sunday, you're going to receive the notes via email. By email. Anything else? I think that is it. Okay. هذا وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وسلم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.